July 18th, I think it was my brother's birthday, that weekend I picked up a woman back highway, and Matthew was next to me in the seat, and she hopped in, and I took her over to South Airport area, and took her into an area, and my son was there, and I killed her. Real sure my son didn't see it, but that only happened one time.
But that was a pretty good ruse.
Mm-hmm.
So why didn't you do it again?
I didn't want my son to see that happen again.
Gary Ridgway once chillingly said, "I killed so many women I have a hard time keeping them straight." A terrifying confession from a man whose name has become synonymous with the embodiment of evil. This is the story of Gary Ridgway, known more infamously as the Green River Killer. His deeds have etched him into the annals of criminal history as one of the most prolific serial killers the United States has ever seen. The sheer volume of his victims is staggering. Well over 70 lives ended prematurely, each one a testament to the depravity that can lurk within the human soul. A man who, under the guise of normalcy, committed atrocities that sent shockwaves through communities and continue to reverberate today. As we delve into this chilling narrative, brace yourself for the unsettling journey that lies ahead. Buckle up as we journey into the horrifying narrative of Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer. Born in 1949 to an unstable household, Ridgway's story begins in Salt Lake City, Utah. The middle child of 3 boys, he grew up in a home marred by domestic discord and frequent upheaval. His mother, an erratic disciplinarian, would oscillate between bouts of verbal abuse and overbearing affection, a volatile environment that bred confusion and resentment in young Gary. From an early age, Ridgway displayed troubling signs of his dark inclinations. A disturbing fascination with death became evident when he was just a boy, as he was often found near the family's pet animals that mysteriously died. His school reports, too, hinted at a troubled mind, with teachers noting his struggle to fit in and his propensity for violent outbursts. Yet, these signs were dismissed as mere childhood quirks, the growing pains of a boy navigating a difficult upbringing. But little did anyone know this troubled child would grow up to be a notorious serial killer. The year 1982 marked the beginning of a reign of terror in King County, Washington. On a chilling summer day, the first victim was discovered. A young woman, life snuffed out far too soon, discarded on the banks of the Green River. She was the first, but she would not be the last. The victim was a runaway, one of many young girls who had been swallowed up by the streets. She was vulnerable and she was targeted, an easy prey for a predator lurking in the shadows. Gary Ridgway, later known as the Green River Killer, had begun his horrifying spree. His victims were selected with a cold, calculated precision. He preyed on those less likely to be missed young runaways and sex workers whose absence might not ring alarm bells immediately. This was his modus operandi, his sickening strategy that allowed him to operate under the radar for far too long. The Green River became a grim dumping ground for Ridgway. It was there he would dispose of his victims, their bodies hidden beneath the water's surface, their lives extinguished by his ruthless hands. Each body, when discovered, sent shockwaves through the community, each discovery a chilling reminder of the monster among them. As the year 1982 turned into 1983, and then 1984, the body count began to rise. Each victim bore the same haunting similarity: young, vulnerable, and tragically discarded like unwanted trash. The terror was palpable. Parents clutched their children closer, women walked in pairs, and the streets grew quiet as dusk fell. The community lived in fear, and the authorities were at a loss. Despite their best efforts, the police were always one step behind. The predator was elusive, leaving few clues behind. The authorities were grappling with a horrifying realization. There was a serial killer on the loose, a cold-blooded murderer preying on the innocent. And as the body count rose, so did the urgency to bring this reign of terror to an end. As the body count rose, the authorities were grappling with a terrifying predator in their midst. A task force was assembled, the largest in US history, to hunt down the Green River Killer. The mission was clear, yet the path to achieving it was shrouded in a haze of complexity and despair. The investigators were up against an elusive ghost, a shadowy figure that left only the chilling remnants of his horrific acts in his wake. The investigation was nothing short of a Herculean task. Picture, if you will, a labyrinth of dark, winding paths, with dead ends and false leads at every turn. The pressure from the public was mounting, an ominous drumbeat growing louder with each passing day, each new victim discovered. The body count was rising, and so was the collective fear, a fear that was rapidly transforming into a demand for justice. In the midst of this chaos, a name began to surface: Gary Ridgway. He wasn't a stranger to law enforcement. He'd had run-ins with the police before, but nothing that could have hinted at the monstrous deeds he was suspected of. He was an ordinary man with an ordinary job, living an ordinary life, or so it seemed. Beneath this facade of normalcy lurked a predator, one who had managed to blend into the fabric of everyday life. Ridgway was first questioned by the task force in the early 80s, but with no concrete evidence he slipped through the cracks of justice like water through a sieve. He was a person of interest, yet he walked free, a wolf among sheep. His ability to elude capture was as confounding as it was frustrating. The investigators were dealing with a cunning adversary, a master of deception who knew how to avoid leaving a trace. The investigation was a constant battle, a relentless pursuit of a man who was always one step ahead. It was a chase that seemed to have no end in sight. Despite being a person of interest, Ridgway managed to elude capture for almost 2 decades. The Green River Killer had become a horrifying enigma, a phantom that haunted the Pacific Northwest, and the hunt was far from over. In 2001, advancements in DNA technology would finally bring Ridgway to justice. The dawn of a new millennium heralded the end of one of the most chilling chapters in American criminal history. As science marched forward, it brought with it the means to finally unmask the Green River Killer. The puzzle pieces started to fall into place when investigators reopened the cold cases. They had stored samples from the crime scenes, and now they had the technology to put them to use. Forensic scientists painstakingly worked on these samples, extracting DNA and comparing it to the genetic profiles of several suspects. The evidence was irrefutable. The DNA found on the victims was a match to one man, Gary Ridgway. Once in custody, Ridgway was confronted with the damning evidence. Cornered, he did something that shocked everyone. He confessed, not to 1, not to 2, but to a staggering 70 murders. His confession was cold, detached, as if he was recounting someone else's deeds. He spoke of his victims with a chilling indifference, detailing how he had preyed on them, how he had snuffed out their lives. His trial was swift. The courtroom was filled with an eerie silence as the litany of his crimes was read out. The faces of the victims' families reflected a myriad of emotions: grief, anger, and a grim satisfaction that justice was finally being served. The judge's voice echoed in the stillness of the room as he delivered the verdict. Guilty. Ridgway was sentenced to 48 life sentences, finally ending his reign of terror. After 2 decades, the spectre that had haunted the Pacific Northwest was put to rest. The Green River Killer was no more, but the echoes of his horrifying deeds, the lives he had stolen, and the pain he had inflicted would continue to resonate, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the hearts of men. Ridgway's horrifying journey from a troubled child to a monstrous serial killer leaves a chilling legacy. Let's take a moment to step back and examine the grotesque tableau that forms the life of Gary Ridgway. His story is one that sends shivers down the spine, a tale that seems too monstrous to be real, yet it is. A tale stained with the blood of innocent lives and marked by a terrifying disregard for human life. Born into a world of turbulence and torment, Ridgway's life was marred from the very beginning. His innocuous beginnings were nothing more than a deceptive calm before the storm, a storm that would claim the lives of so many. It is here we find the first chilling whispers of the monster he would become, the Green River Killer. As we delve deeper into his macabre tale, we encounter his first victims. Innocent lives snuffed out in their prime, their dreams and hopes dashed on the rocks of Ridgway's ruthless desires. The sheer number of his victims is staggering, each one a testament to the terrifying nature of his crimes. His reign of terror sent shockwaves through the community, igniting an investigation that would span years. As the heat of the investigation intensified, the pieces of the gruesome puzzle began to fall into place. The net was closing in on the Green River Killer. And then, the downfall. The moment when the mask was finally ripped away, revealing the horrifying face of the monster beneath. Ridgway's capture marked the end of a nightmarish chapter, but the scars left behind by his heinous acts remain. The horrifying story of Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, serves as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface. A reminder that monsters are not always creatures of myth and legends. Sometimes they are terrifyingly real and live among us, hidden in plain sight.